fuck you, Enbridge, fuck you, Pat Daniel, and I know you know who the fuck I am, so fuck you and your fucking oil pipeline that's fucking killing people in this town, and your lying ass shit burying up oil. You're killing people, you're killing the environment, you know it, you're a damn liar, your ass belongs in jail. I said it on Facebook before, and I'll stand by what I said again. Your ass and everybody else in your little cohorts that are lying about this shit and covering it up belong in jail, so fuck you. And told them, you know, I can't breathe in my house, my eyes are itchy, red, watery, I feel like I have a sinus infection, I have headaches, I'm feeling sick, can you put me in a hotel room? And they told me, they said basically that I had to pay for the hotel room up front and they would reimburse me, and I was on limited income at the time. I couldn't afford to pay for the hotel room. So after I got the runaround, they finally a week later decided to put me in a hotel, said they made reservations for me, show up to the hotel, and the hotel said there was no reservations, that Enbridge never called them. So eventually, after about 5 more phone calls to Enbridge, they put me in a hotel in Kalamazoo, had me stay there for a week. Then after a week, they told me I had to go back home, they weren't going to pay for no more, and that the smell was fine, and that there was nothing to worry about. I come back home, the smell was not fine. I will admit it wasn't as intense, but it was still very, very strong, and it was still stinking up my house, my furniture, my clothes, everything. Well, then I found out, because Enbridge had told me that they would reimburse me for all the expenses that I had to pay out of pocket while I was at the hotel, because my life was in Battle Creek, so I had to commute from Kalamazoo to Battle Creek to go to work. I didn't have a kitchen to eat at or anything, so I had to eat out a lot. It cost me a lot of money out of pocket. They told me, save all your receipts, we'll reimburse you for all the costs that this has been. So they had the little Enbridge Community Center, downtown Battle Creek, across from City Hall. I went there the Friday that they kicked me out of the hotel and told me I couldn't stay anymore, and I went there with a stack of receipts. My total, I think initially was that they had agreed to pay me was around $425 because of all the gas and the receipts that I had, and I had also made them pay for the extra cleaning supplies I had to buy to get the smell out of my clothes and out of my furniture, and also I made them pay part of my rent since I couldn't stay in my house for part of the month. So they had initially agreed to a roundabout figure of about $429 with the receipts I had approved. Then they tried to get me to sign a liability waiver. This was back in August. They tried to get me to sign a liability waiver that basically said when they cut me the check, that would be it, that I couldn't sue them for further actions if I were to get sick later on down the road, that this check was the end-all, be-all, and that this meant we were done. And I basically told them hell no. And so when I told them I refused to sign their liability waiver, they reduced the amount of my reimbursement check, and then they cut me the check and just basically set me on my way. I made my way right across the street to City Hall, and I brought this to the City Commission's attention, and I told them that they were running a Ponzi scheme. They were scamming residents over there, tricking them into signing these liability waivers when they don't know what the health effects are. Could happen a week down the road, a month down the road, 5 years down the road, a year down the road. And I said, and it was wrong. I said, they're reimbursing people, but they're counting it as compensation, and those are two different things. I also went to many oil spill meetings and stuff. I protested outside of one of the public forums that was hosted by former Congressman Mark Schauer. I confronted Pat Daniel. I told him exactly what I thought. I kind of felt bad because I did get very upset and I yelled at him, and I even tried to make amends with him. And I had two sit-down meetings with him. And instead of talking about oil, he wanted to talk about solar panels. He wanted to talk about green energy. And I basically looked at him and I said, you know, if you were in the solar panel industry and the green energy industry, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but you're not. You're in the oil industry. And in the industry you're in, you suck at it because you just spilled 1 million gallons of oil and now you're not even cleaning it up properly. I tried to be nice to him and I told him, this was back in September. I had heard that oil was being covered up in September.
2010.
September 2010, and I confronted him about it, and he said, no, that's not true. Neither is the story about the illegal immigrants that I confronted him about that I had heard about too. He told me, and I told him, I said, okay, I'll take your word for it, but if I find out you're lying, I said, I'm protesting and I'll hit the street and I'll never trust a thing you say again, ever.
I told Enbridge about the illegal immigrants in August of 2010. I called immigration and I called Granholm 3 different times. Enbridge knew 100% about the illegal immigrants. Matter of fact, we had we had a Spanish speaker for every single meeting we had. Every safety meeting in the morning, every big meeting we had, every little meeting that we had in the morning had a Spanish speaker for all the illegal immigrants. Enbridge is lying when they say they didn't know about it.
Yep, and I confronted Pat Daniel. Well, then we had another meeting, and Pat Daniel wanted to confront me because by then I had posted on Facebook that he belonged in jail. Because that's when I had found out, and around that time, John and I had met up, and I knew that he was full of shit because I had been down to the river. I had seen that they weren't cleaning things up properly, and I knew that he was lying. He doesn't want to talk about oil. He wants to make an excuse for everything, and that safety is of their utmost importance. If safety was so important, why were they so worried about how to figure out how to get the line restarted after the spill, rather than worrying about the community they just destroyed, and the residents they made sick, and the environment they destroyed, and the water they polluted, and the animals that are all dead? They didn't give a damn about safety. They were worried about making more money and how fast can we get this pipeline fixed so we could start pumping more oil through it. They don't care. Had they paid attention to the safety of the pipeline and all of the documents that show that they had been told time and time again that pipeline needs to be fixed, that pipeline is damaged, that pipeline is going to burst, you're going to have a spill, then this wouldn't have happened. But they don't care. It was all about pushing as much oil through there to make as much money as they can, and we're the ones that have to suffer because of their greed and because of their, you know, their exploitation and stuff of what they do for a living. So by then, John and I had met sicker and sicker, and I really didn't realize why. I never put 2 and 2 together because my symptoms were a little bit different than other people's symptoms. I initially, like I said earlier, when the oil spill first happened, I had the itchy, red, watery eyes, the sinus infection, the headache, the stuffy nose. But later on, my symptoms began to be like central nervous system problems. Like I couldn't walk very much. I couldn't walk very far. I was having chronic fatigue, chronic pain all over my body, and we didn't know why. I had previously been diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I had been told, you know, that walking is good for it, so I would go out and I'd try to walk. I tried to do the best I can, but my symptoms just went downhill and progressed so fast. I just got out of the hospital, and 2 weeks, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks in January. I've only been home for a week now, and I was told that I have spinal stenosis, serious degenerative disc disease, 4 more herniations and abnormalities in my back and in my C-spine. I've been told that these are things that they usually only see in elderly, frail people or people that have been thrown out of a windshield of a car. I'm neither of those. I've never been in a serious car accident. I've never fallen off a ladder, nor am I elderly or frail. They don't understand why my central nervous system, why my spine, and why my back and everything is all messed up. They can't explain it. And when I ask them to run tests and stuff, they refuse. They refuse. So here I am, sent home. I'm basically permanently, well, we don't know how permanent it is, but right now paralyzed from the waist down on the right side. I've lost mobility in my in part of my left leg. I've lost muscle mass in my arms, and that is why they've given me a manual wheelchair, because they're hoping that by me rolling the wheelchair that I may be able to regain some of my muscle strength back. I went from taking 0 medications to now taking at least 14 pills a day. And you're going to tell me that, you know, somebody that prior to this was working 1, sometimes 2 jobs, was a community activist and active in the community and volunteered, was going to school and had a very productive life in her mid-20s. All of this is not where I expected to be at 27 years old, and it's all happened, and my health has went downhill so fast from the oil spill to where ever since I spoke to Dr. gitga'at at one of her meetings that she's held here, I wasn't convinced until I talked to her, and I realized that not all the symptoms that people have are respiratory. And because I wasn't having respiratory symptoms, I kind of didn't think that this was related to the oil spill until people gave me literature and until I spoke to Dr. gitga'at. And when she did her presentation and she showed on that projection screen some of the central nervous system issues that people in Alaska, where Exxon Valdez happened, some of the symptoms they had were identical to those that I had. That was enough to convince me that although maybe this didn't cause my symptoms, we don't know if it caused it, but it certainly has made it, whatever was going on, worse and progress way faster and complicate it way worse than it normally would. And so I'm just one of many. And you know, and there's many other sick people out there too, but this is where I am. This is why I can't be out there protesting Enbridge, because you know damn well if I could, I would. And I'm stuck in my wheelchair. You know, my life is changed totally. It's done a complete 180. I can't even go to college. I can't even drive. Can't finish my degree. I can't work. I'm not able to work anymore. I try to do as much as I can volunteer work just to keep me occupied, because other than this, I'd be depressed. Because my life is just gone, and I'm 27 years old. And you're going to sit back there and lie and say your oil isn't hurting people, and also those people that refuse to do a health study and stuff, you're just as guilty too. So with that, I can't even say anymore because I'm just so upset. I just, you know, this is beyond. I don't know what it takes. How many people have to die? How many people have to get sick? How many people have to become disabled? How many animals have to die before they get the point that what they did was they were selfish, irresponsible, and the stuff they're pumping through those lines they are not qualified to do in a safe manner, and they have no right doing that, and they owe this town and the very sick residents and people that they've hurt a lot.
Enbridge and Pat Daniels.
Pat Daniels is a fucking liar, and I'll say it to his face, and you belong in jail. And I will stand by that till the day I die, whether I die from what you guys did to me or I die from another cause. You know, I'll have it inscribed on my casket, you're a fucking liar. I think Enbridge, they don't care about people. They don't care. All they care about is money and profits. And as long as there's oil flowing through that pipe, there's money flowing into their bank accounts. They don't care. And even if they did pay everybody in this town a decent settlement, let's just say everybody that got sick got $250,000, that is a drop in the bucket. That is pocket change to what kind of money Enbridge makes. Like I said, I was on no medications, so now I'm on all those medicine. I take about 14 pills a day, at least, multiple times a day.
Were you on any medication before the oil spill?
No. Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Autumn.
Well, thank you for what you're doing.
What do you think about what I'm doing?
I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's, you know, I mean, like I said, it's you know, somebody's got to do it. You know, here it is going on, you know, a year and a half later and stuff, and they're still lying a year and a half later, and they're still gonna lie a year and a half later, 2 years later, 5 years later. I don't know what it's gonna take, but you know, you're the fact that you're still sticking with it says a lot about you and your morals and your values, and the fact that, you know, regardless of what you've been through, and you know, people that have you know, tried to hurt you or have, you know, tried to, you know, have vandalized your vehicles and done stuff to you and stuff, and you still come back up, that says more about you. And you can't even get an oil company to admit. That's all we're asking is for them to make them to do anything ridiculous. We're asking them to make it right, and they can't even do that. That says more about you than it does them, and that's sad, because you know what, they should be able to clean up their mess, and they should be able to make things right with the residents.
Well, thank you, Autumn, and I am so sorry that you're in that wheelchair. And
well, it's not your fault. It's Pat Daniels' fault if it's anybody's fault. Pat Daniel, you want to come to my house? You're probably lucky this fucking wheelchair's holding me back, because if my foot could kick, there'd be a couple of my feet up of your ass right about now.
Hundreds of people that are in my community that are now having seizures, that have died. We have about 10 people that we believe died from the oil spill, right after the oil spill. We have kids that are now being deformed that the mothers were pregnant during the oil spill. Kids have blood disorders now. There's cancer on the rise in my community. If you ever watch the movie Aaron Brockovich, there is one right now in Michigan.